Preparing to go live. Okay, it looks like we are live. Okay, good morning, everyone. As you're joining in, feel free to say hello in the comments to tell us where you're joining from. I'm here with Marshall, Golden Eagle Jack, John, and Linda from the People's Wave of Love. Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Yeah, aloha. Good morning. Welcome to a brand new day.
Marshall, do you want to open us up with a prayer and intention for today?
Uh, word that came through the ethers, through the holy realms, and through Goldie. I'm not sure where we're going to go with this, but they showed compatibility amongst the human race. So we'll go into more dialogue about that as we go along. But yeah, that really kind of threw me for a loop this morning when they talked about compatibility, and like I say, we'll talk about it more. But let's open up the doorways to the holy realms. And this morning we asked permission again to connect with the holy realms, the Creator, the Great Spirit, all the grandmothers and grandfathers of all the galaxies, all the universes, the councils of creation. Call upon all of our ancestors, both on our mother and our father's side, to be with us here today. We also summons in all the ancestors of our human world, all of the ancestors, both on the mother and father side of every human that's walking upon this planet at this time. We call them in this morning. We also call in the Mother Earth and all of her kingdoms, the animals, plants, waters, air kingdoms. We ask them to join us too. And we ask for guidance, we ask for wisdom, we ask for understanding. What are the Holy Ones showing us as something that we need to address as humans? So we thank them for coming in. We ask a blessing for each and every one of us that's here today on this video, and ask a blessing for you, your family, your home, your lands, and for our journey. Aho. What they're showing and what I'm visualizing is that this compatibility that they're talking about. The first thing that came into mind, uh, this might be a touchy subject, but I'm just going to say it anyway. We have a lot of religious organizations around the planet, and it's almost though they've created a separation amongst us as human people. One religious organization feel that they have all the answers, and the other one feels like they have all the answers, and they criticize each other. And so the congregations, if you will, wherever they are, they're impressed by the dialogue or the dogma that organized religions cast out to the people. And it's almost like it's set in stone for them, and anybody that is not a part of their belief system It's like they're secondary citizens, or they don't want to talk with them or discuss anything with them because of their moral judgments. And I think that's what the holy ones are showing, is not just the religious organizations, but also the governments. And we have a lot of governments that are not compatible with other governments. That's for sure. We have a lot of problems going on the planet as far as division, separation, and there's an equality factor that is just way out of skew. Um, for example, people who live in China that may go to Africa, or people in Africa that may come over to the United States, or us going to someplace around the planet. Vietnam comes into play, and so it's like we're not compatible with each other. It's like there's a lot of room for judgment and for disagreements, um, because of our upbringing, whether it be through religious organizations, government, or even tribal organizations. I've seen that, a lot happening with tribal organizations, is that they're just not compatible. And I just want to throw this out for a dialogue this morning and kind of get your understanding of what compatibility means for you on a global scale. And let's just start out that dialogue that way. Let's get your comments on that. Oh,
Thank you, Marshall. Go ahead, John has some thoughts and I'll be checking the comment section.
Yes, thank you very much, Marshall. That's it is a tender subject, but some of the stuff that's been coming through my pipelines the last couple of years is about the depth of our education, about the true origins of humanity and what we're connected with, and this concept of separateness, that we all at our core believe that we're separate. And when you have that core belief that you're separate from, then the mind naturally gravitates toward kind of placing a hierarchical a judgment on what is good, what's in line, what's compatible, whatever. But if we've been sold this bill of good ever since we were kids, that this nation is separate from this nation is separate from another. I tasted this firsthand when I was in Vietnam and I went to Japan. Um, in some cases, some areas of Japan, we were treated as outcasts. So that's the first time that I experienced this concept of um, not being publicly accepted, or a racial kind of thing. It was a shock to me. Then when I looked at it a little deeper, I understood why. And so most of us don't really understand that we're not separate from anything, from everything. This is why I love the indigenous ideologies, because the idea of all our relations, we're connected with everything. And when we take that perspective, then sometimes those barriers start to melt away and get a little softer. And we can at least entertain the idea of, oh, that's another human being. Their blood's the same color as my blood. And we're not really separate. We look different, but we're not separate, really. So I think that's kind of, we're not really being shown the full truth of our human connectivity to the spiritual realm and everything else.
all right, very good. No, I agree with you there.
Yeah, I agree with you also, John and Marshall. Um, I think there are changes that are being made into accepting us more. Um, And I think it has to do with the rise of the feminine energy, the rise of the yin. I'm seeing more and more pictures on Facebook of animals nurturing other young animals, friendships between animal species that would normally be predator and prey. And I think there's more tolerance globally than there has been in the past 20 years. I think we're seeing more and more of that. The reason why I don't think it's as obvious is because of the media and the news, that's pushed out there, because it seems like the powers that be, whoever that is working against wanting to keep us, or to allow us to recognize that we are all one. So basically, how did the Catholic Church be so successful in becoming such a strong power? It was because they instilled first fear into us, and then they divided us. And they told us that, we're the only way that you can get to where you want to be in a happy place. If you're a sinner, you're never going to be good enough, first of all. And it was just a doctrine that destroyed us from our natural tendencies to want to be with one another and to accept others that were different from ourselves. And I think that's our natural inclination as children. When we go out and we play on a field and there's other children around, we're immediately drawn to those other children. And it doesn't matter what age, what race, what they look like, we recognize that they're one of our own. And so, we go in and we want to, like magnets, we want to go and be close to them to explore that, that difference, instead of go and attack that difference. I think we don't see enough of as much of it as there is that is out there. And unless you're on social media or unless you're in groups that are actively pursuing integration of the natural kind of integration, you won't see that. The only thing that you'll see is what's being shown on television, on the news, that, here's this strife and here's these people who hate these people and here's this, these people beating these people up. And that's a very tiny, tiny thing, compared to the greatness of so many people getting together during the times that we are right now. So many people getting together for the solstice, so many people getting together for the earth, so many people in unity for preserving our natural resources, for preserving our water. And to do that, this is a movement that is huge, and it's not going to be dispelled. It's not going to be dissuaded. It's something more than what is just obvious around us. And I think we need to remember that. And that's, I think, how each one of us in our daily lives can make a difference, by embracing that difference. By saying to the very loud spoken person, I accept you, even though, your voice is grating and you kind of disturb me in some ways, but I accept you because, you're part of this too. And I'm thinking about my daughter-in-law's father, who is a very loud, brash New Yorker, and everything he does in a normal voice is a shout. And he's Irish, and he's Catholic, and very opinionated, but what a dear, sweet man. And I've learned to be accepting and tolerant of that and compassionate, because he is a good person, and he is out there for, making the world a better place. So that's That's what I have to say today.
That's interesting you say that. You know, I've met a lot of different people, different nationalities, different cultures, you know, different belief systems, and for me, it was always a challenge to set aside my upbringings, I guess, and not get into the place of judgment. And you know, because of the way that we're brought up, you know, in in our life, is that we're mentored by our original teachers, our mom and dad, um, and then we grow, and then we start meeting other children, and we start talking with them, and they have different ideas, and so up the ranks, we're always being taught by somebody that's different than we are, different than what our parents had brought us up with, you know. And then we start going to school, and then that really breaks open a big egg, and so they're feeding us all this information, and it's like, whoa, that's crazy stuff. And then we go up, and you know, if we're fortunate enough, we can go to college, and then that's a whole different atmosphere out there. More knowledge coming in, and then we start to integrate together with the opposite sex, and then we have a relationship going on, and then that's a whole different gambit of information going on. And well, how do you do this? You know, how do you do that? How do you deal with a relationship? And then if you're fortunate enough, you might evolve into a marriage, and then that marriage evolves into having children, and so on and on and on. We're all being subjected to different types of energy, different types of belief systems, different types of knowledge of how to walk through this life. But again, a lot of it's just not compatible with other countries around the world. You know, and I'm not saying. Well, I guess this is a good guilt-ridden thing that's going on. That we're no better than anybody else just because we were grown up in the United States. You know, it's just like, yeah, we have our own aura of information, and how we're what's that, patriotic to our country and our lands, but it's different than other people. It's different than Africa or India or China or Russia or whatever. You know, when we look at the Communist Party, you know, immediately we kind of go into this judgmentation that, whoa, you know, what are they doing over there in those communist countries? Why are they doing this? Why are they doing that? Or then we have, you know, people like the little rocket man over there. You know, he's wanting to challenge everybody and blow everybody up because they don't believe the way he does. You know, so it's mind-boggling of how do we fit into this world commerce of energy and be compatible with everything that's going on. And I know for me, there were some hard lessons to let go of some of my teachings when I'm in different environments, because it immediately stirs up judgments because they weren't brought up the same way I was, but I'm judging them because they haven't been brought up the same way I did. And so I had to lose that. I had to find some way to lose that. And I remember one particular ceremony I went to, and Native American ceremony, you know, very sacred ceremony. But what floored me in that ceremony is people bringing in sacred items that I grew up with, you know, and was taught to use and respect and honor. But people were coming in, you know, with eagle feathers and staffs and sacred pipes and drums and whatever. And as they were coming into the arena, they were, I'm going to say, non-Indian people that were coming into the ceremony because they were welcome there. but they were using these sacred items like you would at a parade. You know, they were throwing them up in the air like a baton and doing all this other stuff. Eagle feathers were flying up here, flying up there. And some of them, they would lay on the ground and they'd go pick them up. And so for me, it just kind of hit me in the head. It's like, what are you people doing? But it was based on my understanding, my teachings of how to treat sacred items. So the reason I'm trying to explain this is that I was taught a whole different way than a lot of people, obviously, well, each one of us, you know, because of our upbringing. But that particular day, I had to come to grips with my judgment, my anger, my frustration of what I was seeing out there with other people who had no teachings like I did. But it was like, why are they doing this? So I was angry enough. I was going to leave the ceremony. I was going to pack up all of my things and get in my car and leave because it just impacted me tremendously. But as I was going back to the car, I was shaking. I was so angry. And then all of a sudden there was a side trail kind of went off into the forest, and at the ceremony there were drums, you know, beating and you know, people ranting and raving and yelling like crazy people, whatever. You know, it was a big celebration. So I walked down this trail, and the more I walked down the trail, I wanted to get away from the drums because the sound of the drums just kind of filled my sight with all of these people coming in here and throwing up all these sacred items and staffs and, you know, all these things. And so I walked down this trail, and I walked far enough where I couldn't hear the drums anymore. And so I got to a place where very serene, very peaceful. And all I could hear was a couple of little birds flying up in the trees and a little bit of wind whisking around in the trees. And I had no hearing capabilities of hearing what was going on at the ceremony. I just kind of shoved that aside. So I was sitting out there alone, and then, you know, I looked up into the heavens, and I called on the holy ones, and I says, why did you bring me here? What is the reasoning for me to witness all of this? I said, this goes against everything that I'd been taught. Why did you bring me here? And so I'm sitting there, I'm listening. And then all of a sudden, I heard these words. And it said, lose your eyes. And I'm thinking to myself, lose my eyes. Now that's about the dumbest thing I've ever heard from the Holy Realms. It's like, what do you mean, lose my eyes? What, do I pluck my eyes out so I can't see yet? So I'm still kind of processing, and I said, okay, so there's got to be more meaning to what's going on here than just losing your eyes. And then all of a sudden, here it comes again, lose your eyes. So I'm thinking about it, right? And so my anger level is going down a little bit because I know I have a communication going on with the holy ones here, and so I know there's a lesson to be learned. So I'm thinking. And so I'm visualizing in my mind again, you know, people just, you know, throwing things all over the crazy place, the sacred items. And again, the words came in, lose your eyes. So I concentrated. I said, okay, I think I can understand what you're saying is lose my eyes, but why do I need to lose my eyes? Why do I need to shut off my visual? And then all of a sudden, it's kind of like this big voice kind of came down. And it basically said, now that this is what changed my life entirely about judgment. The voice came down from the holy realms, and I believe it was the creator of the Great Spirit that said this, or who knows, maybe another big old angel or somebody. Somebody said this. It said, "Lose your eyes, see through the Creator's eyes, and you will understand. You will understand balance. You will understand non-judgment. You will understand freedom. You'll understand peace. You'll understand happiness if you look through the Creator's eyes and not your own." And I thought about that, and I thought, whoa, that's a heck of a statement there. And so I kept on thinking about that, and I said, see through the Creator's eyes and not your own, and you will understand that everything is as perfect as it ever needs to be every second. And then I got a chewing out, and the Creator, it's almost like the Creator says, who are you to judge what I've created? Who are you to judge what I've created? I gave every individual out there, every plant, every animal, teachers for their life, just like I gave you teachers. Who are you to judge what teachers I gave those people? And I thought, whoa, that kind of humbled me immediately, because that's what I was doing, is I was judging them through my eyes and my understanding. But when they said, look at them through the Creator's eyes, that really changed my whole perception about judgment. And so this compatibility thing that they're showing today is like, for me to be compatible with all of the wonders of the world, I was going to say wonders of the world, I have to find that place within inside of me that's non-judgmental and look at it through the Creator's eyes. And so this morning, I'm asking the Creator, the Holy Ones, and the Ancestor, is like, okay, so I acknowledge that all of these things are going on around the planet, this incompatibility and all these different things, but those are my judgments. What is it that I can lend myself to put everything back into balance? And then Goldie comes in and says, everything's already in balance. We are the ones that are out of balance. We humans are out of balance with all that is because of our judgments. And I thought, whoa, now that's pretty heavy duty if you really think about it. So again, for me, it's like, okay, let's just look at the world for maybe the next 3 or 4 minutes and try to visualize the world through the Creator's eyes and not your own. Everything that's been created this day, a brand new day, never ever been used, is as perfect as it ever will be. This second around the planet, everything is as perfect as it ever needs to be, because it was brought together by a creation, by eminent consciousness way beyond us, way beyond our knowing. But everything is as perfect as it ever needs to be right now. It's a learning lesson, I believe, for all of us around the planet, The plants are learning, the animals are learning, the humans are learning. Everything on the Mother Earth is learning some type of compatibility, some kind of a balance within the species. So I don't know. I'm just kind of rambling on here, but this is what I see is like try to visualize the planet and all the problems that we have in our human minds, that we don't have any problems. Think about that. What do you guys think? What do you guys think? Jigna, what do you think about that?
Wow, that's really powerful. That's powerful stuff. I was just trying to imagine what if each one of us on this planet today really took a moment and saw that everything was intentional, and the good, the bad, the ugly, that everything is meant to happen in this very specific way. Um, and I cannot even imagine, if we all thought about that for a second, what that effect would be. That just is, it's blowing my mind a little bit. I wanted to take a moment here as John and Linda are getting their comments ready. I wanted to read what our viewers have been saying in regards to what compatibility means to them on a global scale. Ellen said honoring diversity is an important element, which we heard Linda talk about as well. And I'm going to put us in gallery view so you can see us talking. And Pamela said, we need to heal judgment at the root by asking the holy ones to help us to let go of judging others and to transmute this negative energy, and to learn to forgive ourselves and others for the pain they have caused us and our ancestors throughout time immemorial. We have Ellen, who also said, we are the silent underground coming up and out. We are the change. Thank you for getting those comments in and listening to this powerful intention for today. What does compatibility mean to you? What if we all saw that everything was exactly where it needed to be in the moment for us? John and Linda, do you have anything to add?
Yes, if I can chime in here. I was just getting ready to type something in the chat here, but I don't know how many of you know what a shamanistic journey is. It's a process where somebody's facilitating a drum beat that kind of elicits a little more subtle state of awareness. I was in one of those years ago, and one of my guides come through and says, in order for you to really operate as a true human being on your world, you need to see with your heart and feel with your eyes. And then you will truly understand your connectivity with everything and the role that compassion plays in your life. So I think that that element of compatibility has to be fueled with our compassion in our understanding of respect for all things as related or connected on some level plays a very, very big role. So seeing with the heart, feeling with the eyes. I think it's the same, another reflection of what Marshall got about, seeing through Creator's eyes.
Yeah, I agree with you, John. That is what a challenge is that. And I just love you, Marshall, when you start telling your stories, because there are some things when you said lose your eyes, like what am I supposed to do? Dig them out of my head. that was pretty crazy. But I get that. I get that. If we are the ones that are out of balance and not the earth and earthly things, then in order to put things back into balance, we need to put ourselves back into balance. That is, put ourselves back into balance with one another. So how do we put ourselves back into balance with one another? And I think that's what the compatibility is all about. We find those opportunities where we are in strife with one another. And, because it's our nature to squabble and to debate, because there's this inherent back and forth that's born within us, we can use that. We can use that energy to resolve and step back and just realize, am I the one that's wanting to put what I believe, what I feel, what I want onto this other person? Am I the one that wants to be in control? And I know control is a big trigger for a lot of people, because when you're in control, then you can make sure that things happen the way that you want them to happen, and you don't have to have anything be an upstart. You don't have to have anything interjected that's going to change where you want to be, in your little peaceful world. Okay, but that's never ever going to be the case. You're going to always be upset, because that's the only way that you'll be able to change. You can't change just being still and by yourself, although maybe you can, because something will come to disrupt that stillness and that by yourself. So it's just, we're going to have to deal with it. And it's learning how to deal with it that is the part that is what we need to grasp onto. Oh, okay, here's this challenge, this disagreement. Here's the opportunity for me to step back, look at myself and think, okay, am I in disagreement with this person because it's because what I want and they don't want the same thing I want? Okay, so is it just me that is causing this, and for what reason is it? Is it because I want to be the one that shines? Is it because I want the credit? I want the appreciation from others? It's just because I'm afraid. I mean, there's lots of reasons why we want to be the one that's the shining star, the one that is this on stage, if you will. And I think there's a lot of opportunities for us to become coming back into balance with who we are, who each of us is within ourselves.
Well said, Linda. And to add to that from Ellen, she said we must put ourselves in balance with ourselves first. And that is the deep work that is vital to true change. So to echo what Linda was saying, we really have to start. The reflection of the outside world is what's going on inside. So if there's chaos inside, then how can we expect the outside to be peaceful, right? I'm going to ask Marshall to unmute here.
Okay. Can you hear me? All right. It kind of reminds me what Goldie said years ago. Find a joy in the conflicts and the conflicts will disappear. That's a powerful statement, because there isn't really any conflicts out there that we don't create. Think about that. There are no conflicts out there that we haven't created. I'm going to share a fascinating elder's statement. It was a grandmother. She was near 90. When we were introduced into our reservations, our tribal lands, the possibility of putting casinos on our lands, right? That was way back in the late 70s to 80s. There was a lot of dialogue going on with the possibility that, hey, we're going to have casinos, we're going to have money, we're going to have all of this. But there was a meeting in Sacramento, California. A lot of the tribal leaders came together and they were talking and discussing about the pros and cons about casinos. Most of it was how do we do this? How do we engage in the development, and who do we get in to help us build these crazy things? Well, anyway, it was all the dialogue was all about money, 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 money. Tons of money. And so the tribal leaders were invited to this conference, and along with a lot of elders. And so everybody had their say so, right, of the pros and cons. But a lot of it was more of a pro type of a dialogue, because they could use their monies for the infrastructure and build houses and clinics and all that other stuff, which was a positive influence. And make a real long story short, the elders got a chance to express their feelings about the casinos. And so this last speaker was this grandmother. And she came up on the podium and she says, I've listened to everybody here. I've listened to a lot of you tribal leaders, and many of you, you know me. A lot of you, I changed your diapers when you were young. You guys forgot a very, very valuable lesson. When you're speaking this kind of dialogue, is choose your words. Choose your words with wisdom, not with ignorance. She says words are very, very powerful. Words is what's got us into trouble. She says, I'm going to put this out there for all of you leaders, for all of us, to really kind of understand choosing your words wisely. She says, today, right this second, envision in your mind what would happen if every one of us around the planet never spoke another word. Think about that. Visualize that. If everyone around the planet, all of our world leaders, all of our organizations, on and on and on, the people, everybody had never spoke another word, starting right now, visualize the possibilities of what could happen. I'm just sharing that with you right now. Kind of visualize that. Of what do you think would happen if nobody ever spoke another word, starting right now? What do you think that would look like? Chigna, what do you think would happen if we never ever spoke another word, starting right now?
Well, we would have to show up in different ways, right? So if we seal our lips, we would have to, I think, do a lot of use our energy work to communicate, find different ways to communicate in our actions. And that would be very interesting, Marshall. I'm seeing, I'm trying to visualize people who are getting angry and how that's going to show up. And of course, with sadness, there'll be tears. And hopefully more just feeling each other's energies a little bit more. I don't know. I'm still thinking about it. Linda, John, anyone else in the comments want to comment, please do.
Yes. So as you're talking, Marshall, I am imagining this in my eyes, and I'm thinking, okay, so we don't have any more discussion about money. There's no more discussion about what I want, what you want. There's no more discussion about anything. So now it comes back to, let's go all be babies again. And the only thing that we are communicating with one another is, I'm hungry, I'm tired, I want to sleep, I need to go to the bathroom. I'm upset. And of course, if you're upset, you can still cry. Those are words in that. You can laugh and play. That's always a good communication kind of a thing. I mean, it really restricts you back down to the childlike behaviors before you learn to speak. So there's not anything else going on in communication besides let's just go and be together. We'd be like wild animals.
So I've got, thank you, Linda. That was very good. Um, so I think initially there would be some chaos, which might actually be a good thing to help kind of settle down some of the craziness. But also, as everybody was talking, we've all heard this concept, this term that, well, words are good, but we really can see who you really are by your actions. Your actions show us who you really are in the world. And so we'll have to look at how we behave maybe a little more candidly. And, some of the basic human needs are, as Linda was pointing out, those basic survival needs, but also the basic human need we have of sharing affection, the need to cuddle, the need to be loved, the need to show love, and all that. And so we would have to be a little bit more creative about that process. But then I think about all the people who are struggling with the ability to quote unquote hear with these things, but use sign language. And some of the most beautiful things I've ever seen were people signing each other, and I could feel more emotion, more real humanness sometimes in that signing than the words. Words can be ephemeral kind of things. But, one of the most beautiful things I ever saw when I was a kid was somebody was doing a presentation about the Lord's Prayer, both in English and also there was a Native American person there signing it in the Native American sign language. And I was in tears when this thing was over because I thought that the signing was more poetic, more evocative of the deep, true emotions that fueled the real essence of that prayer. And so I think the gift of speech is wonderful, but we can communicate without speech. And maybe it's a good practice for us to try sometime. How can we extend, because we have five senses, we can experience the world in its depth in any one of the five senses. Speech, I'm not so sure speech is a sense. It's a double-edged gift. So I love what the grandmother said about choosing your words wisely. Do they come from a level of spirit? Do they come from a level of ego? They come from the intellect? What is your speech connected with? I think that's the real deep message there. I really appreciate that message, Marshall. Thank you for that.
Marshall, I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Okay. Kind of jumping on board with what the grandmother was also expressing. She said, now this is kind of mind-boggling too. She says, words are the things that separate us because words cause judgment. Words cause judgment. It's an unnatural quality about us. It expresses something that we call ignorance. Think about that. Words expresses ignorance about true reality. We conjure up in our minds a dialogue or a visual or a definition or whatever, and so we use words to communicate with each other, but sometimes those words aren't compatible. You know, it's kind of like what's that saying between men and women? You know, there's Mars and Venus and whatever, and they're talking the same words, but they're communicating on different understandings of the word, right? So basically, that's what the grandmother was speaking about. And she says, if we were able to lose all of our words, first of all, we would have no wars. We would have no churches. We would have no governments. And you break it down from there, we would have no issues. We would be in natural balance with all living things upon the Mother Earth. Because we're going by feelings. She says, in the beginning, there were no words. It was just feelings. Feelings reflect absolute truth. So if you really think about what the grandmother said, that's very, very profound. Dialogues and words get us into trouble. That's the bottom line. And then we put words on paper. And then we call them laws. And those laws can be interpreted in all kinds of different ways. They're called loopholes. So again, we're using our minds to jumble up all of these words so it's compatible to what we need. It's not real. It's an illusionary state of mind. Think about it. You know, that's I believe is why we're so out of balance in that compatibility zone that the holy ones are showing this morning. I'm gonna how are we doing on time, Jigna?
We are almost out of time here. So I was actually doing my role as a timekeeper to remind everyone that we're almost out of time. This was a beautiful session this morning, really talking about compatibility with each other. And we definitely want to hear from Goldie before we send everyone off. We have a quick comment from Sandy, who was saying, who shares that I'm going to quote her. I was at a weekend retreat years ago where the first 24 hours were in silence. I had never experienced that before. When dinner was served, we were to experience everything we could with each single bite of food. We were to be totally aware of what was happening around us in the house and in nature. It was the most powerful experience I've ever had, and I didn't want the silence to end. And I want to add that really resonates, Sandy. Thank you. I spent 10 days in the silent meditation retreat. And after those 10 days, it wasn't easy. And there was a point, there was a breaking point, and everyone goes through this where they just want to get out. And at the end of the 10 days, what happens to your entire being after being in silence for so long is just truly remarkable. It's quite the awakening. And you don't have to go into retreat for 10 days, even a couple of hours can really have a profound effect. So thank you for sharing. With that, Marshall, I'm going to give you the last word, closing comments. If Goldie wants to share anything too, please feel free.
As you were talking about the 10-day retreats and stuff, when I was a little guy, when I was able to go up to the mountains and talk with the mountains, a lot of times I would go up there by myself, and I would tell the elders where I was going, and they said, "Yeah, you know, go up there and talk with the plants, talk with the animals, talk with the birds, and talk with the sky, talk with the clouds." And so sometimes I'd be up there weeks on end by myself, just absorbing the energy of the Mother Earth. The elders said that, yeah, we can teach you or we can suggest to you how to interact with the Mother Earth, but for you to understand for yourself, you're the one that has to communicate with the Mother Earth. There's the mountains. You go up there and visit. Teach yourself. But with that being said, we were talking about judgments earlier, about judgments kind of disrupting our compatibility with all living things. But if we see it through the Creator's eyes, right, obviously there's no judgment. I'll share this much with you with what Goldie transpired one time. I was out there in West Texas, out there by myself working on a construction site, and we were building this old building and remodeling it. But I had a lot of time on my hands, and so in the little village of Alpine, as I walked through the little town, I seen a lot of travel agencies, and on travel agencies' windows, there were a lot of posters. And many of those posters says, find your happiness here, find your happiness there, come to this region and find your happiness, your ultimate happiness. And so in my mind, I went back and I was having lunch, and Goldie was sitting there, and I said, Goldie, I said, is it possible to achieve ultimate happiness? And so she was just sitting there. But I can tell I sparked something in Goldie, and so my instinct said it's going to take Goldie a little bit of time to come up with an understanding. So I finished my lunch and I had to go get some parts. So I walked downtown again, and I came back about an hour later, and here's Goldie sitting there, but I can feel she was full of energy. And so I asked Goldie again, I said, so Goldie, is it possible to achieve ultimate happiness? And then she says, there's only one way to achieve ultimate happiness. And I said, so what's that? And then she says, disintegrate all of your judgments. Disintegrate all of your judgments. And then I asked her, I said, so can you explain a little bit more how can I do that? And she says, first of all, look at everything that's around you. What do you see? It's kind of like my grandmother talked about, a long time ago. She said, what do you see? And I said, well, I can see the sky, I can see the building, I can see this, I can see the traffic, I can see people walking along. She said, that's a judgment. She says, lose that judgment. So I lost the sky, I lost the building, I just kind of erased it out of my memory banks. So I'm looking around basically at nothing. And I said, okay, so what next? And she says, look around your immediate area. What do you see? And I said, well, I see you, I see the chair, I see the floor right here, I see our table, whatever. I see my legs, whatever. She says, lose that judgment. And I'm looking at her and I said, even you? She says, lose that judgment. So I'm looking around, right? So I'm kind of dissolving the energy in my mind. And so I closed my eyes so I couldn't see anymore, right? And I said, okay, Goldie, so I've lost that judgment. Now what? She says, feel your body. I said, okay. So I'm kind of feeling my body. I can feel my toes, my legs, my fingers, my arm. And she says, lose that judgment. I said, whoa. So I lose the judgment of my toes, my legs, and everything, right? So I lose that. And I says, okay, what next? And she says, listen to your heartbeat. Focus in on your heartbeat. So everything is dissolved around me, right? And the only thing I'm concentrating on is my heartbeat. So I'm hearing my heartbeat. It was pretty profound. And then I said, okay, so I can hear my heartbeat. And she says, lose that judgment. I said, whoa. Now that one freaked me out a little bit. Because in my mind, I felt like if I lose the sense of my heartbeat, am I going to die? And then again, Goldie says, lose that judgment. I said, okay, here we go. So I concentrated real hard and I just kind of lost that sound of my heartbeat out there in the ether someplace. That fast, I went to this place, the most pristine place you could ever imagine. Just a beautiful, beautiful place way out there in the universe or the galaxies or some place. That pureness was the only thing that was there. There was no thoughts, there was no emotions, there was no nothing. It was just pureness. And when I was there for about, I don't know, I just think maybe about 5-10 seconds, it was so amazing to be in that place of pureness, is that when I acknowledged it, and then I said, wow, wow was the judgment that brought me back out of that place. It was an amazing, amazing journey to go to a place without any judgments and going into a place of pureness. I've done that many, many times since then. The longest time I've been able to do that was probably about 45 minutes, to just be in that essence. The closest that I can get to it on a daily basis is just stare into the sun and receive the energy of the sun, the mana through the sun, like through the stargazing community or the sun gazing communities. So I've done that practice. And the reason I'm sharing this is because judgments can really upset our balance, our harmony, our emotions. And for me, in order for me to be compatible with the rest of the planet, I need to see through the Creator's eyes that everything is as perfect as it ever needs to be. Lose entirely all of my judgments of what I think it should be, and look at the Mother Earth in pureness, in beauty, love, compassion, nurturing, and just allow myself to be absorbed in that natural energy without judgment. So those are my final words today. Something to concentrate on for yourself. Oh.
Thank you, Marshall. Thank you, everybody, for coming. John, Linda. And we will see you again tomorrow at the same time, 10 a.m. Pacific time. Aloha.